Picture this. It's February 25th, 2005, and a 16-year-old from Denver is on his first date, trying to play it cool, when suddenly he spots something that would change his entire life forever. A silver Porsche Carrera GT, one of the rarest supercars ever made. And it's driving through the snow in the middle of winter in Denver, Colorado. Epic. Now, this kid is Doug DeMuro, and he's absolutely losing his mind inside, but he can't show it because, well, it's the first date. Fast forward 12 years later, Doug times his wedding date to be the exact anniversary of that first date. But here's the thing. Today, Doug owns that exact same model Carrera GT, and the business he built from that teenage obsession, well, he just sold it for $80 million. This is the story of how a regular guy turned his passion for pointing out weird car buttons into one of the most valuable creator-led businesses ever built. And I'm gonna show you exactly how he did it, including the 10 crucial strategies that any YouTuber or business owner can use to scale their own YouTube empire. And this isn't coming from just anyone. I've been a YouTuber for over 10 years, and I have a channel with over 1 million subscribers that makes multiple 6 figures a month. So I know a thing or two about YouTube. And Doug's story caught my eye because I think it's brilliant how he monetized his channel. I love his content style. Oh, and I love cars too. But let's take a step back and rewind to the beginning because Doug's story starts way before that fateful first date. Doug DeMuro was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, where he attended George Washington High School. And from an early age, he was obsessed with cars, not just driving them, but understanding every weird detail about them. And here's something that most people don't know. In 2009, before YouTube was even a career option, Doug was featured in Automobile magazine for his hobby of car spotting. And this wasn't some internet famous guy trying to monetize his passion. This was a genuine car enthusiast who was already getting recognition for his knowledge before social media even existed. And Doug went to Emory University in Atlanta where he studied economics. And here's a romantic detail that shows how genuine this guy is. When he met his future wife while working as a resident advisor, giggity, even in college, Doug was the guy people trusted and looked up to. And after graduation, Doug landed what most car enthusiasts would consider a dream job. He worked for 3 years at Porsche's North American headquarters as a vehicle allocation manager. Basically, he was the guy deciding which Porsche dealers got which cars. Talk about insider knowledge of the car industry. But here's where it gets interesting. Even while working this stable corporate job, Doug was moonlighting as a freelance writer for Autotrader.com. And he was already building his voice in the automotive world, writing about cars in his spare time. So key takeaway number 1 is Doug didn't start with the goal of making millions. He started with genuine passion and expertise. Then he found ways to share that passion with others. And if you're trying to build a YouTube channel for business, start with something that you genuinely care about, not just what you think will make money. But also don't ignore the money part either. I think Naval Ravikant says it best when he says that you should do something that seems like work to others, but feels like play to you. And Doug's obsession with what all the random buttons and doodads inside of cars do would probably be very tedious for other people, but it seemed like play to him. Then, in 2013, Doug made a decision that everyone thought was completely insane. He quit his stable Porsche job to become a full-time automotive writer. In his words, "Back then, I was a guy who had just quit his real normal job with a real normal salary and real normal benefits, and everyone thought I was completely insane." And he remembers the confused faces at Porsche when his coworkers asked what he's going to be doing next, and he explained his plans to write about cars full-time. Now, Doug immediately started writing for 3 different car blogs simultaneously. The Truth About Cars, his own blog called Play with Cars, and Jalopnik starting in April 2013. But here's what shows Doug's work ethic. In that same year, 2013, he published not 1, but 2 books. Now, I've been thinking about writing a book for the last 5 years, and I haven't gotten around to publishing it, not even close. And he published 2 books in a single year. Play with Cars, containing personal car stories, and an ebook called From My Perspective, about his thoughts on topics beyond cars. And then, almost as an afterthought, Doug started making YouTube videos. But here's the thing, he wasn't trying to become a full-time YouTuber, right? It wasn't even really a thing back then, except for a few people in the gaming niche. He was just documenting his car ownership experiences. And in 2014, Doug did something that perfectly captured his commitment to content creation. He took out a loan to buy a used Ferrari 360 Modena, not because he could afford it, but because he knew it would make great content. Now, this is a man who is not afraid to take risks. And he owned that Ferrari for exactly 1 year, documented the entire experience, and then sold it. And think about this, Doug was willing to go into debt to create better content. And honestly, his videos were terrible by today's standards. Basic iPhone footage, no fancy editing, just a guy talking about cars and parking lots. So key takeaway number 2 is Doug documented everything from the beginning, even when he had no audience. And he understood that every experience was potential content. So start documenting your journey now, not just when you think you're ready. Key takeaway number 3, sometimes you need to make uncomfortable financial decisions in order to invest in your content. And Doug literally financed a Ferrari to make better videos, but he did it strategically with a plan to sell the car after creating content around it.
What's happening, guys? In the editing process of this video, and I have an opportunity for a select group of people. So these are people who are serious about growing their personal brand on YouTube. So basically, we figured out recently how to grow a personal brand and combine all the upsides of a personal brand with the upsides of automation, right? Using AI, using things like this to basically grow your personal brand 10 times faster, which in the past used to take decades to do. And now you can do it significantly faster. And you can do this to get a better job. You know, we work with beginners that just want to get a better job with their personal brand. You can do this to make money as a side hustle. We work with a lot of people like that. We can do this to make more money if you already have a side hustle or a small business. Or if you're already crushing it on YouTube, we can help you crush it 10 times more. We've worked with people like that as well. I mean, I literally can show clients at each level, people that we've gotten from 0 to over 10K, 0 to like over 30K, from like 1K per month all the way up to 185K per month, from around 30K per month all the way up to over 500K per month. So literally at every single level, and it works for everyone in every situation. With that being said, we are only working with 3 to 5 people, and they have to be people who are very serious, right? People who are dedicated to making this work. So if you think you're that type of person, go ahead and apply it down in the description and the pinned comment below, and you can be part of our group of 3 to 5 that we help. So see you there. Have a good one.
Now, by 2015, Doug had stumbled onto something magic, a format that nobody else was doing. Every single video started the same way. This is a car name.
This is a new 2025 Volvo XC60.
Then came the section that would make him famous, quirks and features. Doug would spend 15 to 20 minutes just pressing random buttons, opening compartments, and finding weird details that other reviewers completely ignored. And while other automotive YouTubers were doing 0 to 60 times and track tests, Doug was showing people how the glove box opens, why there's a tiny mirror in a weird spot, or how the cup holders work differently than every other car. In other words, he was obsessing over the little details, which is something that he always loved doing. Then Doug did something brilliant. He created the Doug score. Every car gets rated from 1 to 10 in 10 different categories, then he adds it all up for a total score of 100. And the very first car to get a Doug score, that infamous 2006 Range Rover that he bought from CarMax, which leads us to one of the most important stories in Doug's career. Doug bought this Range Rover with a CarMax extended warranty that cost him $3,899. And most people would just drive the car and forget about the warranty. But Doug turned this into content gold. Over the next few years, Doug documented every single problem with that Range Rover. And the warranty ended up covering over $21,000 in repairs. $21,000 for a warranty that costs less than $4 grand. Now, Doug's documentation of this warranty became so famous that car enthusiasts on forums started saying, he most definitely has to be the reason that CarMax extended warranty cost went through the roof, right? So one guy literally changed how an entire company prices their warranties just by making YouTube videos about his car problems. Now, here's something that set Doug apart from every other automotive YouTuber. Most of the cars that he reviews aren't press cars from manufacturers. They're owned by regular people, dealerships, or individuals who lend him their cars. And for a while, Doug even partnered with Turo, where they'd give him a budget to rent interesting cars while traveling, then he'd review them. And this meant he could be completely honest about each car's flaws without worrying about upsetting a manufacturer. So while most car reviewers were basically getting paid to do the reviews, either directly or indirectly, Doug was able to be completely honest. Now, this is something that I relate to on my main channel because I review different jobs and college degrees, and there hasn't been a single time where I've gotten paid by a company that's promoting a job. And I do that on purpose because it wouldn't be fair if they were paying me to talk about the job that they're promoting. That would mean that I am biased. unbiased. And I think that's one of the main reasons why my channel has done so well. So key takeaway number 4, your signature format becomes your brand. Doug's quirks and features approach became so recognizable that people could identify his videos just from the style alone, even with the sound off. And key takeaway number 5, turn your problems into content opportunities. Doug's Range Rover nightmare became some of his most popular content and established his credibility as someone who tells the truth about cars. And key takeaway number 6, independence is worth more than free stuff. By avoiding press cars and maintaining editorial independence, Doug built trust with his audience that translated into long-term business value. Now, by 2016, Doug was doing something that most YouTubers don't do. He was obsessively analyzing his viewership data. In his own words, the change between the next morning and the 1 week is a really good metric. So he would measure initial views versus sustained growth to predict video success. And if a video got good views initially but then didn't grow over the week, he kind of knew that the topic wasn't really resonating. And here's the brutal honesty that makes Doug successful. He admitted, if it was up to me, my entire YouTube channel would be 80s and 90s weird cars that were too high tech for their time. But my metrics tell me that people don't really want that all that much. So Doug was balancing his personal passion with data-driven content strategy. He'd make content that his audience actually wanted, and then of course he'd sneak in the stuff that he personally loved here and there. Now here's something that will blow your mind. Doug ran his entire operation with basically no team. He had one friend named Nick who opened his emails, and that's about it. No accountants, no managers, no social media executives. And Doug was editing every single video himself, spending about 4 hours per video, grinding out multiple videos per week, for 5 years. And while his competitors were investing in expensive cameras, drone shots, and cinematic B-roll, Doug kept it simple. Basic camera, basic editing, and pure content. And the results? Well, by 2025, Doug's channel had 4.8 million subscribers and over 2 billion total views. And by the way, that's billion with a B. And even by 2024, Doug was earning approximately $2,500 per day just from YouTube AdSense alone. And that's over $900,000 annually from people watching his videos. But Doug was smart, right? He didn't just rely on AdSense. He diversified. First of all, he had his 3 books, Plays with Cars, From My Perspective, and Bumper to Bumper. He also did speaking engagements at car events, which, by the way, you can get paid a ton of money to do speaking engagements if you're a big YouTuber. And his credibility grew so much that Jay Leno invited him on Jay Leno's Garage. First in 2017, when Doug was challenged to identify cars while blindfolded, then in 2019, when he got to review Jay Leno's own McLaren F1. And when Jay Leno wants you to review his $1 million cars, you know that you've made it. So key takeaway number 7, data should inform your content strategy, but don't completely abandon your passion. Doug found the sweet spot between what he loved and what his audience wanted. Key takeaway number 8, you don't need a huge team to build a massive business. Doug's lean operation kept costs low and authenticity high. And adding on to that, you also don't need super high production quality and fancy camera and lighting and all that stuff that people waste their time thinking that they need to get. And then key takeaway number 9, diversify your revenue streams as early as possible. Doug wasn't just dependent on YouTube ad revenue. He had books, speaking engagements, and was building towards something much bigger, which we're gonna get into right now. By 2019, Doug was making serious money from YouTube, but he had something much bigger in mind. Now, the online car auction space was dominated by Bring a Trailer, which was doing over $1 billion in sales annually. But Doug saw an opportunity. Doug launched Cars and Bids with a specific focus, modern enthusiast cars from the 1980s to today. And while Bring a Trailer was focused on classic cars, Doug was targeting the cars that his YouTube audience actually wanted to buy and sell. So the launch timing was interesting. May 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And Doug later said, my assumption was that it would immediately fail, but by sheer dumb luck, we launched into this unbelievable car market. So the very first car sold on Cars and Bids was Doug's own 2012 Mercedes-Benz E63 AMG wagon. And here's the beautiful part. The guy who bought it still owns it and regularly sends Doug photos. And after that point, the growth of Cars and Bids was explosive. In 2021 alone, their first full year, Cars and Bids had 4,000 cars listed and $75 million spent by purchasers. By 2023, Cars and Bids had facilitated over $230 million in car sales. And in just 3 years, Doug had built a business processing nearly $250 million in transactions. And they were selling serious cars too. A 2006 Ford GT for $395,000, a 2002 Lamborghini Murcielago for $417,000, right? These weren't just economy cars. And here's something weird that shows Doug's influence. For some unexplained reason, Cars and Bids currently corners the market for sales on high-profile electric trucks like the Hummer EV, Rivian R1T, and Ford Lightning. And his audience was driving the entire electric truck resale market.
Quick break. This video is sponsored by me. Most of you don't know that I actually have my own coaching program on personal branding and then growing and making money on YouTube. And this is good for complete beginners, maybe even people who just want to get a job by growing their personal brand, all the way up to people who are very advanced on YouTube. And they get to work directly with myself and my team to help them reach their goals. Now, we are opening up 3 to 5 spots, and this is pretty rare. We usually don't have these open. We usually only limit them to select people. But we're opening up 3 to 5 spots, and you can check those out down in the description and the pinned comment below. And in this program, you'll get to work directly with myself and other people who are highly successful on YouTube. Just as an example, Sean was able to go all the way from being stuck, not making very much money on his channel, to making over $500,000 a month. Now, that's an example of one of my more advanced students, but there's lots of examples of people who started off from scratch and they got to 5K a month, 10K a month, etc. So check that out down in the description and the pinned comment below.
Then, after all that explosive growth in January 2023, everything changed. The Chernin Group, a major media investment firm, came calling. And the deal was a $37 million investment that gave the Chernin Group majority control of a new company combining Doug's YouTube channel and Cars and Bids into one entity. And Doug explained that it's going to allow us to take Cars and Bids to the next level, let me refocus on making YouTube videos, and get the help of a group of people who actually know what they're doing. So they brought in a professional CEO, Ro Choi, who had previously led companies like BitTorrent and had grown another company from 20 million to 200 million in sales. So what did Doug do with his newfound wealth? He wanted to buy his dream car, that Porsche Carrera GT from his first date story. But instead he said, I bought a 2022 Mercedes E450 wagon and not even an AMG. It's what parenthood does to you. But the story comes full circle. Doug eventually did buy that Carrera GT, completing the journey from teenage car spotter to successful entrepreneur who could afford his ultimate dream car. So today, Doug DeMuro is living proof that you can turn genuine passion into extraordinary business success. From a teenager carrying a camera to prove that Porsche Carrera GTs did in fact exist in Denver, Colorado, to building a company worth tens of millions of dollars and selling part of the stake for a reported $80 million. Plus nearly 5 million YouTube subscribers and over 2 billion views. But here's what I think is most important about Doug's story. He never lost sight of what made him unique. He's still the same guy pressing buttons in cars, finding weird features, and getting genuinely excited about automotive quirks. He even had scale model Porsches carry the rings at his wedding. So the man who turned a teenage car obsession into an $80 million empire never forgot what started it all. The question is, what's your version of that Porsche Carrera GT moment? What genuine passion could you turn into your own empire? Because if Doug DeMuro can do it with car buttons and quirky features, imagine what you could do with whatever you're truly passionate about. So yeah, I had a lot of fun covering Doug's story here. As mentioned before, I am a YouTube coach and I do help YouTubers and business owners grow and make money on YouTube and really just treat YouTube like a business. And I love covering case studies like this. I also do case studies on my own students and my own channel. And if you're somebody who is money rich and time poor and you're serious about growing and making money on YouTube, then apply to work with us down in the description and the pinned comment below. And also check out this video from my client Sean, who was stuck around $30,000 a month and scaled to over $500,000 a month after working with us for less than 9 months. And you can check that out by clicking right here.